In this video, I'm going to show you two applications for ambisonic audio. First, I'm going to show you the basics of using it to pan a source in three-dimensional space. I'm going to start with that by going into Reaper, Track, Insert Virtual Instruments on New Track. I am feeling a little West Coasty today, so I'm going to choose a virtual Buchla music easel, and we're going to insert that on track 1. Cool. I love that sound. Next, we're going to start routing this for Ambisonics. So I'm going to use the ICST plugins. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the route for the master output. I'm going to change the track channels to 4 because we're going to be working in first order Ambisonics. At that point, I can go ahead and tell it that we're good and close the dialog. Now I'm going to click on the route for my first channel. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the parent channels from 1 to 2 to 1 to 4. To do that, I first need to tell it that it has 4 track channels. Currently, it's done that, so we are more or less good. Now, I'm going to do no sends for now, just so that you can hear this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record just a quick little clip. I'm going to save that, split and crop it down to 4 complete bars. It doesn't matter what audio I have in here, just that you can actually hear it. Next, I need to encode this. I'm going to click on the effects insert, all plugins, and I'm going to search for ICST. Now, the encoder that I'm going to use is the ICST Ambi Encoder. I'm going to do Ambi Encoder, first order, 8 channel. Or I could do first order, 4 channel. What's the difference? Well, I'll show you. Here's the first, and here is the second. Now, it doesn't appear that there is a lot going on here. In fact, there's not, except for the number of inputs. Here, I only have one sound in the 1 to 4 channel, and in the 8 to 4 channel, this is assuming that this could be a stereo track. That's the big thing, is taking a look at the routing information here. 1 in, 4 out, 4 in, 8 out. So we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to remove it. And now I'm going to insert the Ambi Decoder onto my master track. Here I'm just going to use first order 8 channels. If I click on that, I insert that. That says 4 in, 4 or 8 out. Here I'm going to set this up. It's currently expecting that we have a stereo output. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go to presets, and we can choose stereo 45 degrees, which is what my speakers are currently configured to. And at that point, I can close it, and it appears that, yes, we have 45 degree left and right. And then down here, we have the height component for those. I'm not going to play around with that, though. I'm going to close it. What I will do is I will loop this recording. I'm going to let you hear what happens when I move the sound source dot here on the X and Y plane, and then also on the X and Z plane. So we're not really hearing the height component, but we are hearing that the sound moves in the X and Y plane quite a bit. And as I approach the center, you can hear that it gets a lot louder, and there's a slight pitch change. This is the Doppler effect. I'm going to turn on touch mode for automation, and let's go back and get some automation data. First, we'll reset this to the center. Nope, I should have done latch mode. That's why. There we go. Now let's reset that. And I can just reset all the coordinates. Like so. Now let's do a pass where I create some interesting things on the X and Y axis. And let's do another pass where I do the same thing on the Z-axis. And unfortunately, I've overwritten my data, so I'm going to go into latch, and I'm going to disarm all, and then I'm going to only arm the Z component. A little hard to catch that one. Okay. Now I'm going to change those back to read only and enable everything. And reset. And now you'll be able to hear and see how everything is moving in three-dimensional space. Pretty cool. So that is just basic Ambisonics. Now, I know for a fact that this is sending everything out using 4 channels, and I can see here are the 4 channels. So I could do a very different mix of this very easily by changing what I'm using for the decoder. I'm going to insert the O3A. Let's try it with O instead of 0. O3A. There we are. Decoder. And I am going to look for their stereo, I believe. There it is. A little hard to find every once in a while, but there we are. Okay, so we've got that decoder, so I'm going to bypass the Amba decoder. And this gives us a different type. If I switch to basic head, we get just a bit more of that functioning. Now, there's another decoder I can use for binaural, and that's going with ATK. I'm going to use ATK first order decode binaural. And this is only working because I am working with first order. I have to disable my Ambi decoder and my O3A decoder. Going to go to default, and okay, we are loaded successfully. So let's hear that in binaural. Pretty cool. But let's get this to something a little bit more interesting. I'm going to create a new session. And here I'm going to dump in some files that I've already got. This is the Ambi Alice files that I've already recorded. I'm going to record those or insert those on separate tracks. And we're going to zoom out so you can see everything. Now I'm going to create a new track, and that new track is going to be moved up to the front. This is going to go in there, and this is going to become a track folder. And I'm just going to call this a format. So why am I doing that? Well, there is a really, really good reason. The reason for this is that I'm going to take everything that is here and I'm going to apply an ambisonic encoder to it, but I want to preserve the various different parts of it. Now, before I do anything more, I want to insert a pre-ambisonic effect. I'm going to use refer on there to do a little bit of noise reduction to everything. I'm going to copy it to every track. I'm going to go one by one through here. We're going to go to subtract mode. And we're just going to make sure that any noise on here is removed. So we'll start off subtract mode, automatically build noise profile. Okay. All right, so that spike right there is probably a little egregious. Let's try this again. I think that should be good. Move to the next one. Same thing, subtract. And this is a very, very quick and dirty way to do it. Yep, we're going to get rid of that peak there as well. Go to the third one. Yeah, it's that initial hit. It really doesn't like that. Okay, and then the last one. Okay, so I've got all of those with refer filters on those. Now what I'm going to do is they're in the folder, so I'm just going to color everything so that it's nice and easy to keep track of everything. So let's set them to one random color. Hey, and it's not a bad one either. All right. Then I'm going to go to the routing, and we're going to start off with this A format routing. We're going to set that to have 4 channels. Parent channels are going to have to be 1 to 4, but before we do that, I'm going to have to go to my master channel and tell it there are 4 channels. Hey, there we go. Now I can do parent channels 1 to 4. I'm going to disable the master send, however, and you'll see that in a second. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create 2 more tracks, which I will randomly colorize. And then I'm going to tell it that these tracks are not inside of that subgroup. In fact, what they're going to be is these are going to be my monitor out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to make this my binaural output, and that is going to have 4 track channels, and it's going to be track parent channels 1 through 4, and this will send to the master. I'm going to use that, and that's going to be where we monitor everything. Then, same thing over here. 4 and master send, and this will be my stereo out. So we're going to have two different ways of doing it. We're going to have binaural out and stereo out. Okay, now in order to actually do anything with that though, I need to click on the routing one more time and I need to enable some sends. So I'm going to do add new send to binaural out, and then here I need to make sure that it's sending everything. So I need to do multi-channel source for channels 1 to 4 to 1 to 4. So that looks good. Then I'm going to do a new one to the stereo out, and same thing, I need to make sure that the source is 4 channels, tracks 1 through 4, and it's sending 1 to 4. And at this point, everything looks good. I don't need any MIDI hardware or anything like that. That just got weird. What happened there? Okay, that's back. I don't know why that just freaked out and didn't show it. But here you can see I've got the individual send levels. And I'm going to mute my stereo out for the time being. At this point, everything is effectively playing through the binaural out, but it's going to sound kind of terrible. Yeah, that's a little bit on the gross side. So let's make that considerably better. So how do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to convert this to a Ambisonic B format. To do that, I'm going to start off by going to the Sparta Array to Spherical Harmonic plugin. So what this does is this takes as a preset a number of different ambisonic mics. Now I'm using the Ambi Alice, which is not listed here. It's got the Sennheiser Ambio, the Soundfield, the Zilla, the Eigen mic, DTU, all that stuff. But it's very close to the Core Sound Tetra mic, so I can just select that and it will use it. I've got 4 sensors, 20-degree radius, and then here I need to adjust the azimuth and the elevation a little bit. I'm going to encode into first order. That is correct, but this needs to be 45, negative 45. Why aren't you updating? Hello. 4, 20, 20, yeah. Let's try that one more time. Okay. It's switching, it's working, it's working. Except it's not working at that one. Okay. All right, well, we're just going to force it to use the defaults and hope and pray that it works then, because this should be allowing me to change it. I don't know why it's being so obstinate. Okay, and now it's working perfectly. Yeah, it just wasn't updating for whatever reason. I will chalk that down to my machine being weird. But once we've got that, we can do a couple other things. We can encode it in other ways too. So I'm going to create the other type of encoder that is there, and that is the Amba Encoder from Sparta. And we'll set that up. And we are going to do a preset T-Design 4. And now, of course, it's working perfectly here. I don't know why it wasn't doing that on the Spherical Harmonics, but okay, yeah. Left, right, up, left, back, down. Yep, we are correct. That is going to give us 2 different ways to do things. Then let's create another plugin that's really cool called the Beam Former, which I'm just going to hide for a second and disable. I'll also disable the Ambi Encoder. Then the next one we're going to add the Rotator plugin. Which allows us to do some really cool stuff that you'll see. After that, we will add a little bit of the energy visualizer. And we'll do, I think, probably the power map as well. So the energy visualizer is IEM. We'll get that. And cool. Then we need the power map. All right. And none of those are doing anything right now. We're going to bypass the rotator. So all of those are loaded, and we'll get to them all eventually. But first, we need to do some decoding. So I'm going to go to the binaural decoder here, and I'm going to use the IEM binaural decoder and just drop that down right there. And I am using currently the Biodynamic DT770 Pro 250 ohms, so we're going to click that for the preset. And then we'll set this up with a couple of different ways that we can decode to stereo. I'm going to start with ATK, Decode Stereo, and I'm going to set that angle to 45 degrees to match my speakers. Then I've got a couple other ones. We can do the O3A, stereo. We're going to leave that on Panner. And we can do the ICST Amba Decoder. We're going to do O1, so 8 channel. And go to the presets, and I'm going to load that into stereo 45 degree. And last but not least, I'm going to add a non-Ambisonic plugin. I'm going to add a master limiter, just to make sure that I am not blowing anything up. And I'm just going to do the absolute basic settings on that. Okay, so again, all of these are muted. I'm just going to leave that like so. And we're going to start off with the binaural decoding. But first, let's talk about what's going on here in array to spherical harmonics. What it's doing is it's effectively taking the ambisonic data from the mic, and it's using a mic preset to convert that into the B format. So if we listen now, we can hear and everything's still down the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the beam former. And here I'm going to give us 2 beams, type cardioid, and now I'm going to position them at negative 55, or sorry, positive 55, elevation 0, and negative 55, elevation 0. So if you've got 2 beams pointed out, 55 degrees left, 55 degrees right, that's 110 degrees. That is ORTF. Let's listen to that now and see if you hear a difference in the sound. And I'm definitely hearing a difference, but it's all on the left side. So let's bring the rotator in and let's adjust it so that we can hear everything on either side. So what we've done is we've basically just created a virtual microphone. Now, if I bring up the energy visualizer, you can see where it is. Here is the left and the right. As it moves up and down, we go top to bottom. Towards the center is towards the front, and out to the sides is the back. So let's check that. And then we can bring rotator in. So that is really, really cool. I could go around and play around with all of this all day and change the different settings for the yaw, which is the rotation angle, the pitch, which is the vertical, and then the roll, which would be to actually rotate things in 360 degrees. So check this out. Let's just drop it. So I can basically dial this in to make it feel like you're literally in the center of the performance. Let's switch over to the Ambi Encoder plugin, and you can hear how this sounds instead. And then back to array to SH. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this. We can figure out exactly where we want things. And of course, we can do a lot with playing around with these. We don't have to flip the signs, but we can. We can also take a look at everything on the power map, which will give you another display that will show you things similar to a heat map. Yeah, let's order. Well, that's not giving me a good display, but sometimes it can be really, really useful in order to see what's actually going on. So we're going to disable that, re-enable there. Okay, let's take a look at what happens when we listen to this in stereo. So we had binaural, and now we're going to go to stereo. We're going to start with the ATK. So again, this is taking 4 inputs and reducing everything to 2 outputs. Okay, we can see we're a little bit biased over here on the left side, but it doesn't sound too bad. Let's go to the O3A decoder. Pretty good. I kind of like that one better personally. Let's go to the ICST Ambi Encoder. And that sounds pretty good. So this is just a quick version. If I wanted to do a lot more, I would turn on touch mode and start going to town with something like the rotator and playing around with the yaw, the pitch, all of that, so that I would create a really, really cool mix. Let's just take a quick look at what happens when I do that. And we're going to go back to binaural. And I've just added a master limiter there, so hopefully we're not going to blow any eardrums. we're going to change that to read. And if I bring up the automation channel, you should be able to see all of the automation for the rotator. Where are you? Yes, your pitch. Which it apparently did not record. How charming. But that would be where it would be normally. That said, there's quite a bit more we can do. You could record all sorts of transformations. You could decode it in different ways and see what it sounds like. But I will leave that to your imagination, by which I mean I will actually record this automation and then I will have you listen to both the binaural and the stereo versions.